Welcome to SENS Talk. All right, welcome to SENS Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host. This is the episode I think everyone in SENS Army has been waiting for. The Locked On Sens are on SENS Talk, baby. Welcome, Ross and Brandon. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having us. Great week. One of my favorites of the year outside of playoffs. Get a lot of player movement, lots of rumors. So happy to be on. Good timing.
Absolutely, and you guys are certainly the two that talk about when it comes to the draft. If you haven't already, go to Locked On Sens, their YouTube channel, or wherever you find podcasts, and check out their massive draft episode with multiple guests. It's an incredible thing. Make sure to check it out. I am not the biggest draft guy ever since the Zadina and Kachuk fiasco. So, whenever others that know a bit more can talk about it, I always encourage others to look at that kind of stuff as well. So check that out. Check out their channel as well. And kind of on that note, before we get into the draft and the offseason and everything in between, why don't you tell the Sens Talk faithful or the Sens Army, whatever you want to call it, kind of about the Locked On Sens story. Again, it's the first time you guys are on the show. I've been on your show before. It's about time you guys are on mine, returning the favor. And why don't you tell everyone about your story?
Yeah, well, Ross and I have been doing the Locked On Senators podcast since November 2009, but that's not where it originated, or 2019.
I was about to say, whoa.
Added an extra decade on there. But that's not where this all began. Ross and I initially met in Toronto at the College of Sports Media, private career college where they just do sports broadcasting. And when you go to school in Toronto for sports media, it's a lot of Leafs fans, so instantly we found each other as Sens fans, and we had our first discussion talking about the Zibanejad-Brassard trade on our walk home from school. And then right away, we're like, all right, let's stick together. Let's make sure we can help fend each other off from all these Leafs fans that are constantly attacking us at school. And then we just wanted to get more reps in, so we started a podcast called Making Sense of the Sens, powered by Sens Central in the basement of the College of Sports Media. They had a little podcast studio there, and we just did that for fun and to practice. So we had two other guys with us. Shout out Chris Parliament, Jeremy Hewson, some of the original podcast members, and we did about 62 episodes of that, Ross. Is that right?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, and we started that in January 2017, so right before the 2017 playoff run, and we thought this is going to be awesome. We're going to do podcasts covering long playoff runs for years. It's going to be easy. It's going to be so much fun, and of course, everybody knows how things went after that, but shortly after, a couple years later, in 2019, we got approached by the Locked On Podcast Network, a buddy of Ross's, Mikey DeStefano, if you know him as Al's brother from TSN Overdrive. He actually does the Locked On Leafs show. So the Locked On Podcast Network is a network of podcasts that cover every single team in North America. There's a team show covering your team. Locked On Raptors, Locked On Blue Jays, Locked On Patriots, even college. They got a show for any sports team you're a fan of, and they were looking for some people to do a Locked On Ottawa Senators podcast, and we did an audition episode for them, sent it in. They liked what they heard. They sent over a contract in November 2019. We signed it, and here we are. What? I think we just did episode 1333.
22, I think.
Okay, so I was close there, and then that doesn't even
closer
count.
than when we started.
Yes, yeah, that doesn't even count all the postcasts we do, which are live streams after every single Ottawa Senators game, and we started that in December 2022.
Yeah, right after they went like 1-11 in November. So we're like, yeah, you know what? December 1st, let's get this thing rolling. And yeah, it just took off. It's just a different atmosphere, a little bit more, engaging with the chat and everything. So yeah, nice little mix. We get more prepped, a more refined version of the show every morning, and then hop back in for about a half hour just to shoot the breeze in the chat and discuss what we just saw. So yeah, it's been a great ride so far, and finally a little playoff run. That was our first time covering playoffs and as many episodes as Pilsy brought up. So yeah, man, just happy to be the tiniest little cog in the Sens community and Obviously, we're just fans at the end of the day. So just being able to kind of turn a passion into a primary source of income has been really fun and really rewarding. And just getting to chat with Pillsy every day. We're just best buddies, and why wouldn't we hit record if we're going to talk about it anyway? So it's been quite the ride so far, and yeah, hopefully it's still just the beginning.
Absolutely. And again, I have to say to you both, congratulations on all the success. I've been doing it obviously for like 12, 13 years. I know all the sweat and tears, literal tears and sweat and blood and everything in between that goes into this stuff, and especially when you're starting out, you're not really making that much. You're spending more time than you're getting out of it, if that makes sense. But it doesn't matter because it's all about the love of the game, the love of the Ottawa Senators, and I think a lot of people see that in you guys as well. So keep up the great work. Congratulations on everything. And like you just said, it's just the beginning. And for our team, hopefully it's just the beginning of a new era, right? A new chapter of potentially many, many Stanley Cups to come here in the nation's capital. On that note, a lot of teams win the Stanley Cup because of great draft performances. Now, the Ottawa Senators are not exactly a team that does not draft well. Usually they draft very well. Obviously the famous draft where Stützle, Sanderson, really Greg all in one round. I mean, that's absolutely insanity. I don't know if we can expect a similar performance like that this year. Obviously, different draft pick, much deeper in the draft. Don't have multiple picks either, which obviously is a big factor. But as I mentioned before, you guys are the go-to draft guys in Sens Army. So on that note, who are your targets for the Ottawa Senators at 21st overall? Ross or Brandon, feel free to take it away.
Well, do you want like our draft targets who we want or who are realistic based on the way the Ottawa Senators like to draft?
Why don't you give me the player that you're most excited about the most and then realistic options?
Okay, so the ones I'm excited about are ranked, at least for me, ahead of 21. So I wouldn't be surprised if the three names I'm going to throw at you are already off the board. Now, that said, Bob McKenzie, who's typically the most accurate outside, or I should say public list that you get to see, he's got these guys all right in the Ottawa Senators range. So I'm going to go with Braden Coots, Cole Reshny, and I'm also going to throw Ben Kindle in there, although that might be a little bit more realistic for him to be available still at 21. And maybe even if you trade back a couple spots, he's just a bit undersized compared to what a lot of teams are looking for right now down the middle. There's some talk, maybe he's a winger, but super skilled. And I'll start with Ben Kindle because he was a teammate of Carter Yakimchuk's this past season with the Calgary Hitmen, and he exploded offensively for 99 points. He was just, all around the ice in terms of playmaking, in terms of hockey IQ. To me, he's just the perfect middle six player that can add offensive value while also playing a responsible game. So he's, to me, a guy that could really fit in terms of a new era of Senators draft picks. Usually they just go with bigger, more athletic kids, but for him, it's his hockey IQ that separates him, along with, of course, his ability to rack up points. Braden Coots, more of a Sens type pick from the way he plays, but not the size. He's 6 feet on a good day, but he plays the game so hard. He plays for the Seattle Thunderbirds. He's got leadership skills, captain down there. Believe he's worn a letter at international tournaments as well. To me, he would be a really realistic and solid pick. Like if he was 6'3", 6'4", he'd be a top 15 pick, no doubt, in this draft. And then to wrap it up, I've got a soft spot for the hashtag NoDACSends. We got to get some North Dakota love in here. And Cole Reshny, a part of the wave of prospects that we're seeing now move from the CHL down to NCAA. He tore up the WHL last year with the Victoria Royals, and now he's going to North Dakota next year. And I think that's the perfect place for him to get stronger. He has the frame, I believe, 6'1", but he's a lighter kid, so he's going to have to bulk up a little bit, but all the tools to be a top 6 centerman in the league that can help you every single shift. So those are the three that I want the Senators to draft, and maybe I'll hand it over to Pillsy for some more realistic kind of Senators type players that are available in that range.
Yeah, I like all those players as well. We'll see if they're available. I think probably like Ross said, Ben Kindle is most realistic to be available there, but not really a Sens type guy. Sens type guy that is realistic and probably will be available is Blake Fiddler, who I'm a big fan of, son of longtime NHLer Vernon Fiddler. He's a 6'4", 209-pound right shot defenseman. He played with the Edmonton Oil Kings last year in the WHL, 33 points in 64 games, but he's more of a physical shutdown defender. And look, right shot defensemen are not easy to find. I would say the best way to get them is picking them up in the draft and developing them. And this kid is going to be a good shutdown defensive type player. And if you look at the left side, you got Sanderson, Shabbat, Clevin. Your left side is pretty solid. Yeah, it's nice. And then the right side, you got Zub, you got
Ooh,
yeah, you got
I knew it.
Jensen, who we'll see how long he's around for, and hopefully he's ready for the start of the season. Obviously, the Sens prize prospect, Carter Yakimchuk on the right side. So, and then you got Nicholas Matsimpalo, a depth guy. So if you want to add a little bit more to the right side and find some of that defensive physical play to balance out some of the more skilled play on the left side, I think Blake Fiddler makes a lot of sense. And then you're probably looking at a guy like Lyndon Lakovic, big 6'4" winger that can score. He's been linked to the Sens a bunch. Certainly, he is their type, and he probably will be available in that 21 overall range. So I would say of the five guys we mentioned, you got some good options there between us.
Yeah, I was watching your episode the other day when you were going through the draft, like 1 to 32. And Fiddler is somebody that just screams Ottawa Senator to me. Big boy,
Yep.
right-handed defenseman. It just seems like an Ottawa Senator pick. Now, again, I don't really like to talk about prospects too much because I feel if you don't really watch the player, you see a 5 minute highlight pack. Obviously, you guys have done your research. Me, it's less so. So when I hear these things as a fan, that just sounds like an Ottawa Senator type player. But on that note, obviously the Ottawa Senators right now need a top six winger. But do you think the Ottawa Senators should draft? And this is kind of like a debate that always comes up during the draft. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you think the Ottawa Senators should draft for need or just the best player available? Because at this point, our prospect pool is pretty thin, and I think you should, in my opinion, anyways, should just go for the best available player. But what say you? Either or.
Ross?
Oh, I just think that they need to change up a little bit of the makeup. Like they've already got their athletes, their raw talent that you hope grows into something. For example, Blake Montgomery would be kind of the poster boy for that in terms of when they drafted him out of a lower league. You're like, okay, how long is this going to take until he pops off? Comes up to London, great decision. He looked great. And a guy who can be versatile all over. That's probably the word I would say describes the Sens draft style the best is they're looking for versatile athletes they feel have a lot more room to grow. Whereas I'd like to see them this draft in particular add an element of skill where maybe there's different things that aren't as, sure in terms of like, I feel like the Sens they draft to be like, who's going to play the most NHL games, not who's going to be the most
They don't take the
star
swing.
powered player.
Yeah.
Big swing. I'd like to see some big swings in this draft. And I like big players as well. I think the bigger the better in terms of if it's a tie, as they were saying today, yeah, you take the bigger player. But if you look like we did on today's Locked On Senators, it's like it's kind of a joke almost. Like I think 66% of their draft picks in the last 5 years are 6'3" or taller. And it's like, okay, at some point, like let's get a little bit of something different,
Yeah.
which is why a Cole Reshny or Braden Coots would be just so exciting because it would show an ability to bring multiple different styles of players into your prospect pool. And then you don't have guys competing for one same job. And there's certain options where, yeah, it already kind of looks like it's fallen off. So sure, get another left shot defenseman if you want. Like they take Philip Nordberg in 2022. Doesn't look like he's even going to get a contract. I'd be surprised at least if he does. So they go back to the exact same style of player with Gabriel Eliasson with another second round pick. And it's just like, let's diversify a little bit what we're looking to add to the prospect pool. And that's why I think that it should be skill over anything else in this. I want to see a guy who's putting up major points in their junior league and who is a top scorer. That's what I'm hoping to see, more so than a specific name or anything like that. I just want a guy who has potential star power in the league one day.
Yeah, and I always find the Ottawa Senators, they draft their style like in the first two, 3 rounds. And then the later rounds, that's when they take the swings. And they do hit sometimes. I mean, there are some guys that they find. I mean, you can go through the list. I mean, obviously, a prime example on our team right now, Drake Batherson, right? It just as a prime example. Hopefully, BMO and other guys as well can, fill that role or kind of fill that category. But I want to see some swings as well. Obviously, the Ottawa Senators after first round this year don't really have many picks in the top three, obviously, rounds. But, and we'll talk about this in a second. If they trade back, That likely will change. We'll talk about that in a second. But I completely agree that I do want to see a swing because, the last few years, again, it's prospects. Some take longer than others. There's been a lot of, so far, anyways, looks like a lot of misses on high draft picks. So for a team like the Ottawa Senators, who are already at the cap, who are already having a couple of holes, and they got their core, thankfully, but they need to have a couple of cores. They need to have guys that come up on those entry level deals. That's why teams like Tampa Bay and whatnot have been so successful because they have all these guys coming up on such cheap contracts. The Sens need that desperately. So obviously, if you move back this draft, hopefully you can, recoup, whatever the hell the word is, to get second and third round picks to help further insulate that depth pool. But again, we shall see. I do agree again, though. Take some swings. You got a team right now with a solid core. What do you got to lose? Let's take some swings and see what happens. But kind of on the note, like I just mentioned, actually, you know what? I'm jumping the gun. I do that sometimes. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to ask you guys because you take a deep dive into the draft. I know both of you have a couple of sleepers that you're praying the Ottawa Senators take. Why don't you tell us which ones are those?
Well, it's a bit difficult in this draft as it stands right now, unless Ottawa does trade back a little bit, because if they don't get the player we're looking for at 21, you got to wait all the way until the end of the third round, and then there's back-to-back picks and then a long break in between. So we always do a top 50 countdown. I think that that's already filling our plate. Now, sometimes I think last year we did a little bit more because we were boots on the ground in Vegas for the draft, but usually we do a top 50, and there's an occasion or two where guys who we have in our top 50 over the 7 scouts that we use to average out that don't even get drafted or that last until the 7th round. But for the most part, a lot of our players are gone by the middle of the 3rd round. So yeah, there's some players who we hope could be there at the end of the 3rd round, but I'm more than likely going to be like every other Sens fan that's firing up elite prospects right after they make those picks at the end of the 3rd, start of the 4th round, and try to figure out where and when this player might make an impact in the organization. So the one name I'll give you that we've heard the Senators do have interest in, and I would like him in the 3rd round, but the way people are talking about him, it could be a 1st round pick, and that would be way too rich for my blood, is Simon Wang, who's a Chinese national who plays now in the Ontario Hockey League for the Oshawa Generals. And there are Oshawa Generals ties to the Ottawa Senators with one of their minority owners, Rocco Tullio, owning the Generals. And it's another left shot defenseman who's 6'6" and super raw. So it would be more of the same, which would be the exact opposite direction I want them to go at 21st overall. But I do think a team is going to be intrigued by the fact that this Simon Wang hadn't really played organized hockey until 2 years ago. And he's a super young birthday. And with that size, he could be a unicorn one day. Great skater. But if it's a 1st round pick, I'm going to go wildly temper tantrumish online. So, all that to say, I wish I had a better name that I could throw at you at the end of the 3rd round, but it would just be a complete guess for me. Like Pilsy, who on our list do you really like that you think could fall? Like we really like that Adam Banak kid, and he's like 5'8", so he could be a guy that falls. But again, like the Sens aren't going to draft guys 5'8".
Yeah, I mean, it depends what area we're targeting here. If we're targeting, and maybe this will lead into the discussion about trading back and a little later than 21st overall, I wouldn't necessarily call him a sleeper, but a guy that I think would be really interesting for the Ottawa Senators is Riker Lee. I mean, this kid is so exciting. His nickname is the Wizard. In U16 at Shattuck St. Mary's, he had 123 points in 57 games. He had 68 points in the USHL this year with the Madison Capitals. He's committed to Michigan State. He was USHL Rookie of the Year. He's 6 feet, 181 pounds. He's a right shot forward. So that's a guy that, if he was still available and the Ottawa Senators thought they could get him a little later, that would be a bigger swing and a different type prospect that they typically don't go for. Or honestly, I don't even think I would be that upset if they went with him at 21, just because it's such a swing and such a different style of player. But that's a guy that's lower in our rankings. We had him ranked 39th overall, but I think he could exceed those expectations.
And he's moved up big time, right? He's actually, I shouldn't say big time. where is he on Bob's list? No, he didn't move up at all. And Bob's actually low on him. Maybe you can get him in the middle of the second round. Bob's got him at 58, dude.
I
Yeah,
will
that
say though, there's always a couple of guys that slip into the first round that you're expecting in the second, right? He could be one of those.
Oh, wait a second. Let's actually get an update on that.
Oh,
Yeah, no, here's the update. I was looking at Bob's midterm list. So this kind of goes with Pilsey's thought there. So on his midterms, he was 58. And then now Riker Lee is sitting as a first round talent at 31st overall. So
yeah.
that's a big
So
mover right there.
you trade to the end of the first round with one of those teams like a Philly that's at 31, and that's looking like it could be good value. So I guess not really a sleeper, more of a riser, but someone maybe that people hadn't had their eye on all season that now I think you should be focusing on.
well, the draft's coming up on Friday. I'm looking forward to see what the Ottawa Senators do, particularly again because that 21st overall pick might be in play. We know Steve Staios is looking at, he said specifically today in his availability at the Canadian Tire Center to the media that they're not looking to trade up. They're looking to potentially move back, recoup some picks, maybe even get a key asset, which is exactly what he said specifically. So on that note, would you trade 21st overall, move it back to get draft picks, or are you looking to trade 21st overall for that answer in the forward core, for that answer on the roster right now? What say you? What do you guys think?
I've been talking about the Ottawa Senators looking at trading back for months now. Ever since we started covering the draft, you really notice, and everybody talks about it. This is not a very deep draft. In fact, it's known as a weaker draft. That's why we're seeing so many teams willing to move their first round picks. We just saw the New York Rangers deciding to let the Pittsburgh Penguins have their first this year. We've seen teams trade. First round picks have been traded multiple times here. We've got teams that have two, even three first round picks in this draft. So I think that goes to show that this is not really the opportunity to trade up, in my opinion, and the Ottawa Senators are not considering that. I think you look to trade back to stay in the first round. I don't like the idea of trading back into the second round to try to get more, less quality options. I think you try to trade to the end of that first round, somewhere between, I don't know, 27 and 32, maybe the last five picks, and then you try to get them to add on a mid second round pick. I feel like that's realistic here, just to try to boost the prospect profile. I know you mentioned maybe you want to use that first rounder to acquire some NHL ready talent. I don't think the value is there to do that. And I think for the Ottawa Senators right now, the priority should be bolstering the prospect pipeline rather than going the route of trading your first round pick to acquire NHL talent. They're getting close to the cap here, so I don't know how you're going to do that. You're going to have to move money out. The value of that pick might not be that much when it comes to NHL rosters. And you got to remember, unfortunately, it looks like the Ottawa Senators are not going to have their first round pick in 2026 unless Michael Andlauer can work something to get that change from Gary Bettman, but it's not looking good. So I think you really have to focus on boosting your prospect pipeline because for an Ottawa Senators team that isn't quite a Stanley Cup contender, but is no longer rebuilding, kind of just hoping to make playoffs and make some noise in the playoffs. You need to find ways to have that next wave of prospects be ready and available.
Absolutely. What about you, Ross?
They would have a really tough time selling me on moving that pick for a real NHL player. I think Senders need to use that pick or get more picks because the prospect pipeline just isn't up to snuff.
Yeah.
And as you're paying your core players more and more as contracts come up and as you're trying to compete, the entry level deals are going to be a huge, huge boost when you can get them in your lineup. So that's my reasoning for it. And I think that that's going to happen because Steve Staios, he addressed the NHL first, rightfully so. Now it looks like Belleville's next with nobody really signed yet, at least. Usually you see a couple trickle in the minor league signings, but I think we're going to see with a new general manager, Matt Turek down there, I think we're really going to see kind of a flip of the roster. And with that, I think will come different prospects in the organization. So Matt Turek being an OHL guy as recently as last year and Staios Andlauer having that connection too, I think we're really going to have to watch out for OHL players to be coming in because I think the familiarity is going to be something that they look for here. Now, unfortunately, the most familiar prospect for the staff and the organization will not be available for them. Fun quick note for those watching the draft and early in the first round, Jake O'Brien will be selected. He was sixth on Bob McKenzie's final rankings. He's top 10 anywhere you look. His uncle is Matt Turek, the guy who is now the general manager of the Belleville Sens. And Matt Turek, his uncle, also drafted him to Brantford in the OHL. So very strong connection there with the organization through family. But again, if they somehow get Jake O'Brien, I will be running up and down the stairs fired up in my house. That guy's got a bit of Jason Spetz in him, the way he dishes the puck, but just not going to happen. So that's just a fun little side story that when you're watching the draft, I don't know if Matt Turek's going to be in the Sens war room or if he's going to be with his family there because they're inviting the top prospects to LA to be there for the draft. So yeah, but the long story short there, Brandon, it's imperative that they add to the prospect pool with this draft class. And if you're moving a first round pick for a player that can help now, all of a sudden you're not drafting until the end of the third round. Like that's so counterintuitive.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Before we extended Zetterlund, I was debating going back and forth because I was like, well, we need a top six guy. Zetterlund got that money. He's going to be that top six guy. And I will just say, I'm sure you guys agree, that contract has the potential to be a hell of a bargain. I'm just going to say that right now. It reminds me of Drake Batherson. You put a guy like that with great, a great shot, great hockey IQ next to Tim Stützle and Brayk Chuck. I think it's going to work out. I don't know about you guys, but I think even I could probably produce on that line. So I'm looking pretty forward to seeing that line next year. And I would agree again, not having a pick in the top 90, not exactly ideal with our current state of affairs in our prospect pool. I want to mention this or ask you a question anyways, because you mentioned how it's kind of virtual this year, basically, other than the top prospects. You guys mentioned you were at the Sphere. That was the last in-person draft, which, by the way, I'm not a fan of. We should have the in-person draft. I love seeing the families, the emotions. That is just so special. We're gonna miss that kind of, unfortunately. You'll probably have live feeds in the homes, kind of like the NFL and whatnot, but it's just different. But kind of talk to us about that experience. I mean, the Sphere, I mean, NHL Draft, I mean, Vegas seems like a good time.
Good
Yeah,
time would be an
it was
understatement.
it was awesome. Yeah, the Sphere is amazing. I could only imagine what it'd be like to see a concert or like a nature documentary or something a little more immersive there. But the NHL did a good job. It was so cool to be there. Vegas, though, not a cool place temperature wise. In June, it was insanely hot, but we mostly stayed in the Venetian, and we you could walk from the Venetian to the Sphere. So we were indoors for a lot of that, which is great. But yeah, just really cool to be boots on the ground there because so many of the top hockey personalities are there you get to see.
Yeah, we
And
saw Steve Nash walking
yeah,
through the
Let's go.
yeah,
yeah.
Joe Thornton we saw as he was one of the guys that made the pick for the San Jose Sharks for Macklin Celebrini.
North Dakota head coach Brad Berry said what up to us.
Yeah, we saw so many people, and it's awesome to be there because you get the whole view of the draft floor. So Ross and I basically were focused on Steve Staios, like, oh man, he's going over to this table, he's talking to this GM. Is a trade going down? Are they going to move picks? What are they talking about? All right, he's on the phone. What's happening? So that was really cool, and just even not Sens focused, like it was so awesome to see when guys got picked. You knew where their family was sitting. Most notably, EJ Emery, when he got
Yeah.
picked, he must have had 50, 60 of his family members there, and they were going nuts. And it's just so cool to see them excited for their family member, their son, their nephew, their friend, whatever the relationship was for all those people that were there. And then them just like high-fiving you and being like, he got picked, he got drafted, even though you're like, I didn't get drafted where we wanted, but that's okay. But certainly, I don't think this decentralized draft is gonna last. I think the rumor is it's probably gonna be a one and done, and kind of everyone is silently rooting it for it to go badly so that it doesn't continue this way. It's just not it's not going to be the same. And I'm not saying they have to go to the Sphere every year.
They should though.
It's not a bad idea. I'm sure the
Yeah.
expense attached going to the Sphere every year isn't cheap. But Yeah,
Well,
don't
James Dolan owns it. The Rangers owner owns it. I'm sure he gets some cuts him a good deal.
Yeah, I'm sure they can
if
work.
the Rangers have a first round pick.
True.
True.
By the way, Pillsy, remember what I was
Uh,
saying to every family on the way out of night one? We'd had a couple beverages.
no, I don't actually.
I was like, "Hey, you're going first tomorrow. Hey, you're first tomorrow."
Yes, yeah, the guys that didn't get picked. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
because you
that
could tell with the look on their face. All their buddies are wearing their jerseys, walking
yeah.
around the floor. That enormous Siliev guy was just loving the fan attention. He was signing autographs and everything. We got to see Carter Yakimchuk a little bit. Great experience. Ian Mendez, Scott Wheeler came up to our room at the Venetian on draft day. Super cool of them to do a live stream with us and do that. And yeah, really, really cool experience overall, even though I got roasted for wearing Birks.
Well, it sounds like a hell of a time. As they say in Trailer Park Boys, Mr. Leahy had a couple of drinks, saw a couple of things. I'm sure that's what went down in Vegas, but you keep it there, you don't bring it here. But yeah,
It
I
was
can agree
awesome.
more. Say it again, sorry.
No, I just said it was awesome. I could talk about that trip all day. I wish I got stuck there for a week. WestJet went on strike the day I was supposed to
Yeah.
leave, so I had to stay in one extra day. I could have done an extra week though, for sure.
I'm sure. And you know what? I bet they're going to go back to the Sphere probably within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I heard Montreal maybe next year
Really?
is what I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
they
got an
missed out
inkling.
on Montreal with COVID. Ross and I were going to go. That was
Oh,
supposed to be the 2020 draft
But they
location.
already
And
did they already did one
honestly,
they did the makeup for that though, right? 2022.
oh, they did the
they
makeup?
did.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah,
Why
why
not?
not?
I mean, 21,000 people cheering
Yeah.
on prospects. That's
It's sick. Although I will say, I don't think it would have been as fun as a fan if you're in a full arena. Like
yeah.
there was something about like the theater
Yeah.
aspect of it where everybody's looking the same way, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a half moon, but like I don't know, I feel like there's something special about that.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we'll see how it goes. You said it yourself. Some people are secretly rooting for it to fail. We'll see what happens. But again, in terms of the draft and everything, I just hope the Ottawa Senators nail it just like they did with the Stützle draft because we desperately need that. Now, moving forward onto the current Ottawa Senator team and what we have right now, the Ottawa Senators, Steve Staios has already said, and to be honest, I don't read into these things a little too much, to be honest, because Steve Staios holds his cards close, so who knows really if he's telling the truth or not here. But he says that, we're going to look at things, but don't expect everyone wants, this is the quote, everyone wants the big player, the big name guy at this time of year, but we're just going to stay the course and see what works. And that was a bit of a paraphrase, but you get the idea, right? And I think that's the right way. Again, I trust Steve Staios more than any other Sens GM in my life other than Brian Murray because this guy brought in Linus Ullmark for an Albatross contract, a fourth line center, and basically a second round pick. So this guy has my full trust. And I'm very confident they will be able to figure it out. But there are a couple of intriguing signings they need to get to. And before we talk about the offseason expectations, it only makes sense to talk about what remains before we get into the additions. Because Claude Giroux, I'm very confident it get done. It gets done. Sorry, I don't see why it won't. Elliot Freeman's reporting that it's not about him staying or not. It's not about the term at this point. It's just the bonus structure. They're trying to kind of nail down how much he's going to make. And his agent is the same agent of Jonathan Toews. So there's a lot of money probably going to be tied into those signing bonuses, which is fine by me as long as it works with the cap. But yeah, so with Giroux, I think it gets done. What do you guys think, though?
Yeah, I think it gets done. They're making all Sens fans nervous, unfortunately, as it gets closer and closer to July 1st, free agent season. But Claude Giroux's got a young family. He chose to come to Ottawa. He doesn't want to move at this point in his career, I would guess. And the fact that in his 3-year contract, in the final year, the Ottawa Senators figure it out. They get to the playoffs. He can see the vision. He can see the young core players locked up. He got a new owner, new management, new coach. Everything is looking up for the Ottawa Senators. It would be a strange time to leave now. So I think the Ottawa Senators just need to make sure they're doing right by him and give him a offer that he feels is respectable. And likely that's going to be done with bonuses. And you mentioned it, Pat Brisson just worked a deal with Jonathan Toews and the Winnipeg Jets that included a lot of bonuses. I don't think we'll see the same thing with Claude Giroux because the Taves one is a little bit different, seeing as he hasn't played in the league in a couple of years. And Claude Giroux, it's not like there's really any injury concerns. He's only missed one game due to rest his entire 3-year term with the Ottawa Senators. So I think we're going to see heavy playoff bonuses. Like Claude Giroux wants to win. He's had a long NHL career, a respectable NHL career. He's coming to the end of it, unfortunately, and he's probably going to want to make sure that he has an opportunity to win. And the Ottawa Senators need to prove to him that if he does, in fact, take a discount on his deal, they're going to use that saved money to improve this roster even more and give his chances of winning, increase those chances.
Ross, before you go, I just want to say when it comes to Claude Giroux, this is a guy that I think we need for on the ice as well. Obviously, he can produce, win those faceoffs, but off the ice, the mentality this guy brings to this team, obviously they're more mature now and whatnot, is integral. This guy, he's not like Marty St. Louis when it's 5-1, he scores and acts like he just won the World Cup. Okay. This guy does not really celebrate unless it's a big moment, a big goal. And that's the type of energy we need on this team. You need to be hungry, 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 like the hungry hippos. We need to call Ottawa Senators the hungry hippos because this team needs to dig in, get even hungrier. And a guy like Claude Giroux with Kachuk and whatnot as well, and that supporting cast of leaders, my goodness, you know what I mean? So I just have to say this again. When you have a guy that scores a goal and it's just like he's walking, in the park or whatever, that's the mentality I want on this team. What about you, Ross?
Yeah, I don't hate that thought process. Obviously, I want Claude Giroux to stay as an Ottawa Senator, and to echo Pillsy, just like makes no sense for him to leave now. So they just got to work out the money. And I do appreciate though that the Sens are trying to get the best deal so that they can add around him. And maybe that's something that Giroux can be sold on. I get that he's a proud veteran that believes he still has a lot in the tank, but the less he takes, as long as the Sens are spending it, which I truly believe they will, then he should understand that that's going to give their team a better chance to ultimately accomplish something he never has, which is win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it comes down to. I would expect 3 to 3.5 for a 1 year deal with some signing bonuses. But hey, we'll just have to see what happens because again, we know he was kind of pushing for a couple of years. It looks like they've kind of agreed on the 1 year structure. So the fact that we're seeing that there's no term issues or anything like that, or any issue with him not wanting to be in the city, it's just about the finer details. I'm still very confident, but it is, again, we're a week away basically from Canada Day here. So I would like for it to get done, just like you guys said as well. Now, another interesting one is Levi Merrilainen. Now, you guys mentioned there's other guys in the AHL that haven't been signed, like Angus Crookshank and whatnot. And I won't get into it, but some of those guys are not going to come back. Levi Merrilainen, he's a guy that probably will come back, especially because he's going to be the backup next year. Not probably, but he will come back and will probably be the backup next year. Steos today said that he's comfortable with Levi Merrilainen and Matt Sogard being the second and third goalie in the organization. He also mentioned that they're looking to sign or extend whatever Anton Forsberg, but it looks like he's going to hit the market, which makes sense. He should go somewhere else where he's going to get the proper money that he probably wants. He wouldn't be able to get that here. And I think it is time for a guy like Levi Merrilainen to get that opportunity. However, he also hasn't been signed. Now, he is an RFA, so it's not like he's going to go anywhere, but I'm kind of wondering what you guys think about that. What type of contract would you like to see for Levi Merrilainen? Would it just be a 1 year deal, so where we're at in a year? Or would you like to give him some term and save some money in that way?
I'd be okay with a 2 year deal, the old classic young goalie move where you give him the first year 2 way, second year 1 way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, you can easily point to Matt Sogard on a 1 way next year and say, hey, should we do that again? But for me, I want to be the same as this year in the middle of the season, where either Levi Merrilainen is the starter in Belleville or he's playing games in Ottawa. Like when Ullmark got hurt there in December, he came up and he played. But when he wasn't, he went back down to Belleville. He needs reps. He needs games played. He's only going to be 23 years old at the start of next season. So no waivers required, no matter what the contract is. He will not need waivers. And that to me is going to be a huge, huge asset to the Senators that they can really, I would say, even like cheap out, if for lack of a better term, on a backup goalie and have your set cost, whether it's 1.5 million or even less, and know that that person is likely going to play 10, 15, 18 games, and then the rest of them will be Levi Merrilainen in that spot.
What about you, Pilsy?
I'm not up with some other Sens fans that are ready for Levi Merrilainen to be the backup. I agree with Ross. The most important thing is for him to be playing games. So if Linus Ullmark is healthy, and let's hope he is, this is a Vezina winning goalie that wanted to be the number one guy. He not struggled. He was in a position in Boston where he wasn't the clear number one guy, even though that's where he won his Vezina. He was splitting the net with Jeremy Swayman. I want to see Linus Ullmark playing 65 games or at least 60. Like he's your guy. You're paying him $8.25 million. And if that's the case, then Levy's playing like 20, 22 games. That's not how you develop a 23-year-old goalie. He hasn't spent that much time in the AHL. I want to see him be the starter in the AHL, get a low risk 1 year deal on a veteran backup, and have him playing the 15, 20 games. But if there is an injury, then you got Levy Marilyn in there for insurance, and then he can be the number one guy, just like what we saw happen this year. And then when the team is healthy, you send it back down. I don't think it would be a smart move for the Ottawa Senators to go in this year being like, all right, we got Linus Ullmark and Levi Meriläinen as our guys, because if there's major injuries, you don't want a case where your 1-2 punch is Levi Meriläinen and Mads Søgaard for a long extended period of time. It's not good to rush your goalies and put them into situations too quick, too soon, and have expectations for him. I know he played great in the sample size that he was here, and I believe in Levy, but that's the reason I want to take my time and develop him, because I believe in him. I don't just want to burn him out and have him lose confidence or put him in a spot that's not fair for him. So there's not a lot of great options in the UFA market for goalies, but I think the Ottawa Senators need to be responsible and get a veteran guy just in case.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I'm kind of in the middle there where it's like, look, regardless of what we do, whoever starts as the backup, we need a third string goalie that has some NHL experience. Friend of the show, Matt Sogard, love the guy. He's an absolute beauty. But, if that's your 1-2 punch, like you just said, and Allmark's out for a significant amount of time, and I hope this doesn't happen, but he does have an injury history. He does miss some games sometimes. As that happens, of course, for goalies sometimes, you want to have depth back there. You want to be locked in or locked on to be able to have a guy back there that you can rely on, especially if you're competing for the playoffs. We saw 2 years ago that if the Sens just had a 900 save percentage, they would have probably made the playoffs. And it's going to be the key for the Ottawa Senators. I know this is cliche and very obvious for them to make the playoffs next year. They have strong goaltending. So I agree with you. You can also rotate with Levy as well, even if you have that backup, if you want to shake things up. And that's the beauty of having a guy like Levy who can go up and down, and depending on the contract, of course. So I am 100% in the middle there because, again, I think, you want to have that depth. You also want to give them a chance. But like you said, Pilsy, goalies, unlike other prospects, they take much longer than others. And they also hit their peak much later than other players. Look at Craig Anderson, for example, right? The guy bounced around a little bit, found his home here in Ottawa, and arguably was the most underrated goaltender of the 2010s. And I know that's a hot take, but if you look at the stats, he's one of the best American goaltenders of all time. So enough said with that. But again, I would absolutely say bring in some depth, at least to insulate Levi Meriläinen there. And we'll see what happens with that. Now, moving on to the offseason, obviously, we have roughly $10 million of cap space with still Levy and Giroux the signs. So you're probably looking, rough estimate, 5 million or so. We also know they're not looking to hit, or 5 to 7, and they're not looking to hit the cap either. So you're probably looking $3 to $5 million to spend on that right-handed defenseman they're reportedly looking at, or a top or middle six winger. What do you guys think the Ottawa Senators should do this summer? Is it a free agent move? Is it a trade? What should they do? How do they bolster this team and make them better going to next year?
For all the Sens fans that want the Ottawa Senators to make a big splash, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know how they do it without moving a contract out. If Claude Giroux doesn't stay, then maybe there's a discussion. If you move on from David Perron somehow, then maybe there's a discussion. But I don't think the Ottawa Senators want or are going to do any of that. I think ideally they'd have both those guys back. And like you mentioned earlier, Fabian Zetterlund got paid to be a top six guy, and the Sens didn't bring him in as a rental last year. They see a long future with him, and they see the potential that Fabian Zetterlund has, and he's gonna put the points up that we expect come this season when he's a top six guy more regularly. So I think you're looking to find a Nick Jensen insurance type right shot defenseman, someone that can be a bottom four right shot defenseman that's not going to be too costly either through trade assets or cap hit wise. Someone that we've kind of talked about is a Sam Malinsky from the Colorado Avalanche. He's a right shot guy, restricted free agent. The Colorado Avalanche don't have a lot of cap space, so that's a guy that has some NHL experience, and I think you could be comfortable if he plays a decent amount of games for you. So I think they're going to have to prioritize the right side, but nothing too splashy. We're not talking Rasmus Anderson. We're not talking Aaron Ekblad. I would love though. I would love to look at options like those guys, but you just don't have the space for it. And I think if the Ottawa Senators run back with a similar team to what they had come playoffs, they're in a good spot, especially with if Linus Ullmark is healthy, he can play good. All of the core guys, like I think Timmy's got more to give if he shoots a little bit more. Brady's gonna have another good year. We saw Batherson have a great year. Sanderson found his form in the second half of last year. So the Ottawa Senators are in good shape. So I don't think we're gonna see that big move. And Steve Stais has made it clear he thinks that sometimes the best thing you can do come free agency is to not make a mistake. And we've seen teams make big mistakes, giving out too much money too long to guys that aren't necessarily fits. You're just trying to make a splash. And the Ottawa Senators have been victims of that themselves. You look at Pierre Dorion going for DeBrincat, going for Chikrin, pushing all his chips in. And that's fine sometimes, but it can backfire too. And I don't think the Ottawa Senators are in a position where they need to make that big push.
I want to throw something before I get to you, Ross. Everyday Sens put out a great tweet that I couldn't agree more with. Perbix from Tampa Bay. That is a guy, a right-handed defenseman, probably going to be a little cheaper. A guy that's also has some room to grow. He's a bit younger as well. That's somebody that I would really like. Again, that's the type of player you should expect the Ottawa Senators to get. A little under the radar type of guy that can handle his own, play on that second or third pairing, make 2, 3 million at the most, and get the job done. What about you, Ross?
Yeah, I hate to agree completely, but so you know what, I won't. I'll say they make one half decent move that kind of raises our eye a little bit. I wouldn't be mad if they don't, but I think they're going to be aggressive. I mean, you hear all the speculation that they're in on certain bigger name players that wouldn't be associated with them in the past. They know that they have to address 5-on-5 goal scoring, and they did at the deadline with Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund, but they were still, I believe, 20th in the league from the deadline to the end of the year in 5-on-5 goals. So they're going to have to get more support up front. Now, if you go out and get certain players, do I think that takes the onus off the players that need to just improve internally? Yeah, a little bit. But I also think if they bring in the right player, it could help elevate those guys too. So it's a fine line they're going to have to walk. And I'm very curious to see how it all shakes out because Steve Stais, after this summer, I mean, this is his team now. Like, sure, you can say that Pierre Dorion built the core, and he did with the high draft picks they kept getting. But beyond that, like, this is going to be Steve Stais' roster, and we're going to see how it takes shape this summer, both in Ottawa and Belleville. Like, I know it's not as sexy, but I'm just as curious to see what the Belleville Senators look like next year. They have so many opportunities to improve that team with guys coming up for contracts and seemingly a desire from Mike Landauer to put a winning product on the ice down there. So, yeah, there should be a lot of transactions. Some might seem small, but could really help the team going forward. So, yeah, best time of year, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing which way the Sens go. Right, this is only really our second off season of seeing how this new staff is going to take control of their transactional window.
Well, I just want to throw something at you guys. It's not going to happen. We're not getting no Mitch Marner. Okay, we're probably not getting Brock Besser. But how crazy is it that the Ottawa Senators, again, it's so unlikely, but isn't it such a breath of fresh air that they're involved in these talks, so to speak, and they're reaching out and they're, again, it's unlikely to happen, but they at least are not against the idea of bringing in a player like that. That would be very pricey, and let's just say that would not have been the case a few years ago, right? So, what do you guys think about that? And by the way, pro or against Marner coming to Ottawa? I don't know how I feel about it, but might as well ask you guys before we wrap up.
Nah, I'm good.
I would be, oh man, I am so no and thumbs down on Mitch Marner. I don't want any part of that. Let him go get his money somewhere else. Great player, not for me. Um, it's interesting that they're kicking tires on these guys. Steve Stais is doing his due diligence, checking in, seeing what's available, and Stais has mentioned this. Like sometimes you know, you don't always get deals done, but you find out where you stand with players, with agents, with other general managers. You find out what players like or are interested in. So you start building information, and that helps you make informed decisions later on down the road. We know that they had looked at an Allmark trade, the trade deadline previous, but it didn't get it done. And then that led to them getting an Allmark deal done because they already built the foundations for what maybe could work there. So it's good that at least Steve Staios is picking up the phone, doing his job, and checking in on things, even if they don't all pan out.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know what? Steve Stais, it seems like he always has something up his sleeve. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens here in the next week. But boys, it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys, and great to have you on Sense Talk. It's always a pleasure, again, as I just said, to have a conversation with you both. And on the note, where can Sense fans and hockey fans in general find your stuff, listen to you guys, and everything in between?
Pillsy, I want to see you do this.
No, man, this is your job.
Full agreed.
Um, all right, you can find us on Twitter at Sense Central. I manage that social media account. All the
Yeah.
tweets are coming from me. You can find us on Instagram at lockedon.senators. I do all those posts. You can find us on TikTok. I forget what our TikTok is. I'm just running so many social media accounts I lose
Yep.
track sometimes. We got a Patreon. If you're not sick of us after daily episodes, a nearly 7 hour mock draft, and you want more content, find
Hell
us
yeah.
on Patreon. We got a merch store, Ross. Let the people see what you're rocking right now.
Ooh.
You got Send Central Podcast merch, sweaters, hoodies, t-shirts, you name it, we got it. I think that's it. Just letting everyone know I don't do any of the social media stuff. That's all Ross. He's our social media manager. So he likes to see if I know my stuff, which I typically don't. You can find me at Brandon Pillar 1, and you can find Ross at Ross Levitan on Twitter as well. What did I miss? Find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah.
Pro. Just a
And
pro, Pillsy.
you'll find all that in the link in the description below as well. I'll make sure to put it, guys. But again, always a pleasure, boys. Enjoy the draft. Enjoy the summer. Hopefully,
Yes,
summer with
sir.
Steve Stais, and hopefully, we'll talk soon.
Likewise, man. Thanks so
Thanks.
much for having us. Appreciate you, Brandon.
Absolutely, boys. Take care, and hopefully, next time we talk, we're talking about a Stanley Cup here in the nation's capital, baby. Bold
Fire
prediction,
me.
but we'll see. All right, boys. Take care.